Hello and welcome to spss 4 from part Q7. Here we're carrying on with some group comparisons, but here instead of just looking at the eco-license one, we'll look at some other categorical variables. So there's, as well as eco-license, we've got natural resource management system. Is it a standard one or is it a community-based one? Or there's different types of firm ownership we could compare. So I'll just do one of each. So we look at natural resource management system. Which of these variables might be influenced by that? Could it be views on the views on how effectively, well, it should be maybe views on how effectively local resources are managed. You imagine there'd be an effect there, or it could be energy or water use. Perhaps we'll just take views and water, have a quick look at those. So I'll bring up Explore again. I'm going to reset it this time. I'm going to put views on how well the resources are managed and water use in there. And this time, instead of eco-license, I'll put the management system in there. But I'll have to set the plots back because I've reset that. So this is just a descriptive analysis using Explore and only looking at the sample of 60. And that's saying that views on how well local natural resources are managed. Standard management 2.48, community-based natural resource management 1.91. Okay, you know what? I think I get to this stage. It's good to check that I'm using the scale the right way, because it seems amazing that this would be higher for standard management than for community-based natural resource management. Let's just check that, what that variable means. Excel, here's the original spreadsheet we got the data from. And views, in your opinion, how effectively is local environment being safeguarded? Safeguarded. 0 is much more ineffectively, 4 is much more effectively. So yeah, the higher this number, the better it's being managed, they think. So this is another one which is completely the opposite of what I expected. Fine. Even by the median. So that's different. How about water use? 651 litres per person there. And again, slightly more. So there's probably not going to be a difference. That's quite close. So that's the difference in views. And that's the difference in water use. That seems quite a big overlap, quite close. So we can just test whether or not these things apply beyond the sample using a t-test. In this case, I have to remove that, and I think the management is again type 0 and 1. Can look at views, and again look at water use. Before I press go, just check we've got the right thing for 0, yeah, it's 0 and 1 again, same. This all looks good. So do 2 t-tests, and as expected, the second one is not at all significant. That's this one here. So quite a high probability of getting that difference between the standards management there, 651 and 681. Quite a high probability of getting that if the null hypothesis is true. So we can't be at all confident there's any difference in the whole population in the water usage between those two systems or forest management. And for the views on the environment, views on how well the environment is managed, there's more of a difference in the sample. But again, if we assume that there's no difference in the population, the chance of getting this difference in the sample is bigger than 5%, whichever row we use. We should use the top one, but it's bigger than 5%. It is less than 10%, so there is some moderate evidence there that in the population there is a difference, but we can't reject the null hypothesis at 5%. So it's not very strong evidence. Okay. So that's looking at natural resource management system. 2 different types of firm ownership. I'll just do a couple of these because this is just to show you that you can do these group comparisons even when your variable has got more than one type of different group. But you have to be careful how you do it. So if I look back at my Excel file, with a t-test, I can't compare, because there's 4 different types, there's 4 categories of ownership. I can't compare them all at once. I can only compare 2 of them at a time. So for example, what I could do is I compare the local private sector with the foreign-owned private sector. So 1 and 2, for example. So I'll do that to start with. Maybe that's all we'll do because this video is getting long. So I go back to explore. I also need to know what kind of difference I'm looking for. So here, the fact that this time's got to be type, but here, no. Type, and I'm going to look for differences in. Let's see if there's a difference in the holiday price. Let's be quite lazy again and just put everything in. So look for difference in all those things according to the ownership category between 1 and 2. Just jump straight to the box plots. Okay, let's look at one. So states, privates. So it looks like there could be a difference in states and the views. Local private, mixed private, and holiday price. Huge differences there. Visitors, state, foreign, private seems to be very different. Those all seem pretty much of muchness. Water, foreign, private, and states, a bit different. So some differences in impact. So you can do t-test to check any of these comparisons between categories. So just wait for the one that looks quite different. The number of the views on the views between the states and the local private. No, I don't know, that's boring. Local private and foreign private in the holiday price. So is it true that the foreign private firms are charging more on average for holidays than local private firms? Why do we need to do a test? Because I can see on the screen here it's different between the companies in my sample of 60. Now I'm going to do the test to find out, does that hold outside the sample of 60 in the whole population? Is there evidence of that? So bring up my test. I'm looking at views between local private and foreign private. Not views, I'm looking at holiday price. So get rid of that and get rid of that. Put in holiday price. Get rid of this. I want to look at type. And the type is going to be, the group's going to be 1 and 2, because 1 is local private, 2 is foreign private. So that's 1 and that's 2. So it should test holiday price between those two. Let's see what happens. Oh yes, I think I've hit bullseye here. There's the difference. So null hypothesis would be the mean holiday price is the same for local private companies and foreign private companies in the population. If that's true, if we make that assumption, this is telling us that the chance of getting that big a difference in the sample is 0. Yeah. Whichever row we use, we should use the top row, but it's 0. It doesn't mean 0, it means less than 0.0005. In other words, it's not going to happen, it's very unlikely. So if I believe the null hypothesis that there's no difference in the population, the chance of getting this difference in my sample is almost 0, very, very unlikely. So it's really, really unlikely. In other words, that my null hypothesis is not likely to be true. Because my null hypothesis makes the observation very unlikely, so I really don't think my null hypothesis is a good idea. I'm going to ditch the null hypothesis, reject the null hypothesis, and because the significance is less than 1%, less than 0.01, reject the null hypothesis at the 1% significance level in favour of the alternative. And my conclusion is there's really very strong evidence here that there is a difference in the holiday price between foreign private firms and local private firms in the population. So that's quite a strong conclusion. Definite reject. Okay, so you can carry on and do some further t-tests. I've used Excel to look at all the comparisons just in the sample. So if there's any others that you think might apply in the whole population, such as perhaps this income difference between local private and foreign private, or the visitor number difference here between state, local privates, or bio-impact between the mixed private and local private. You could test those. Another possibility which I didn't mention in the questions, what that is, but I didn't mention in the questions is that, I can't get back to the question paper. Too many things open, sorry. Another possibility I didn't mention here is that because there are 4 categories, another way of approaching this is to combine the 2 categories together, which we did for a previous part of the worksheets above. I do believe, or perhaps we'll do it below. No, later on it shows you that. When we get to the categorical test later, you combine together some of the categories. So you could do that. For example, you could combine all the private sector firms together and compare them with the state firms. Or, as we do later on, we can combine all the ones which are purely locally owned, that's the state and the local private sector, compared with the ones that have got some foreign ownership, which is foreign private and mixed private. So if you can combine those categories together and then do a t-test of just those 2 categories. Finally, just to mention, one problem with this way of just showing you doing it is that because of the nature of the t-test, even if there's no differences between any of these things, if you keep making lots and lots of comparisons, eventually you'll come up with something that just randomly you'll come up with something which has got a low p-value, so it looks as though there's a connection there, but really it's just because you repeated it so many times. Eventually you're bound to find something that's different just by chance. So in Year 2 we teach you more advanced methods of doing this. Okay, so in the next section we go on to look at ways of comparing or of doing correlations and testing whether a correlation you see in the sample is also likely to apply in the population. But that's a different kind of test, so for now, thank you for watching.